Good Friday morning, everyone. Here we are in another round of COVID lockdowns, at least where I am in Ontario. Um, at least we can still train our dogs and go out and enjoy our pretty decent weather for January. Thank you for joining me on Facebook Live this morning. For those who don't know me, my name is Paula Hoger. As I go through this live, feel free to ask questions in the comments. I will answer throughout the live, so just ask away. Um, If you are listening to the recording, let me know by using hashtag replay in the comments section. That way I know that I haven't answered you. And please feel free to ask anything as you watch the playback, as I will regularly check back to answer questions. Now, I just mentioned the COVID lockdowns and realize this is making it even more challenging for puppy owners. I got my puppy April 7th last year, so I totally understand how hard it was to do a proper job of socializing. But really, you just have to be creative. The world is still out there, and luckily, the weather's been really good. So people, and because of we can't go anywhere, people are spending time outside. So even though the dead of winter is making it more challenging, keep up going places, exposing your dog to anything. Even standing outside a garage and listening to the air guns going is socializing. Remember, anything that's new and different is socializing. So make sure you're exposing your puppy to stuff. Don't hibernate with your puppy. And then in the spring, when you come out, realize, oh, this was a mistake. My dog is terrified of the world or super excited or whatever your puppy's personality is going to end up creating. Did you know that puppies are supposed to see 50 people every week, 50 new different people every week from when you get them to when they're 4 months old? People come in all shapes, sizes, colors, smells, and you want to explain to your dog they're all people, they're all safe. So that's why the 50 people a week. That could be done. I used to go and walk up and down the parking lot in front of the lineups at Walmart. I covered 10 people, 2 minutes, right? And then I'd go to a new store, walk beside their parking lot, or walk beside their lineup, 10 people, another 2 minutes. So it was easy to expose my new puppy to 50 people. And these 50 people were all wearing masks, had hats on and gloves on because it was still April. Good morning, Karen. Hope you're having a lovely morning. So, um, so I hear this all the time, so I'm going to comment it. I talk to people and I'm like, how's the socializing going? And they're like, oh, he played with my neighbor's dog. We're good. We're socialized. That isn't it. Yes, dogs are part of socializing and they are an important part. But um, first and foremost, want to, I want to create a dog that can walk by dogs before I create a dog that every time they see a dog, they want to play. It's all about balance, right? Yes, I want my dog to understand how to communicate with other dogs, but at the same time, I need them to understand how to walk by other dogs. Socializing is not just dogs, it is the world, the whole world. The world is full of so many things, and the more you can expose them to, that's even better. And like I said, luckily our weather's been pretty decent for the dead of January. Outdoor skating rinks and toboggan hills are crazy busy. Great place to go get started. These would be a great start to exposing your puppy to people, especially children, because there'll be children running around screaming. And the nice part is, I actually don't want people to approach my dog till I'm 100% sure they're comfortable and until I've taught them how to behave themselves. Uh, if you have a super friendly hyper dog, I want to teach them how to be calm before I let them go, bah, it's a person. So with COVID, less and less people will come up to you to touch your dog, which is actually a good thing. Um, so start as far as you need to for your dog to be comfortable. Socializing is about building confidence in manners. Do not force your puppy to deal with something because you think they should be fine. Oh, it's just a kid, you'll be fine. This will backfire because you'll make the fear worse. Remember the ODR game, observe, don't react? This is where I start with all puppies. First, you just stand still, giving your puppy a chance to take it all in, not asking anything from them. And then you're creating that self-control right from the get-go, a future adult dog who will understand how to make those great choices when you go out in public. So let me look at some questions because I saw some come in. Helen wrote, oh boy, I thought we weren't supposed to have them out before their shots. Okay, Helen. So remember, I am not a vet. I will give you what I do. First of all, find out what the rate of the things you're worried about are parvo and distemper. So before I take my dog anywhere, I know what the rates are in my area. I live in an area with extremely low parvo and I think non-existent distemper. So I feel exposing them to the world is more important than not exposing them. So that's how I balance the risks. I've had this conversation with other people. One lady was taking her puppy out wagons because as long as your dog doesn't touch the ground, the stuff comes off feces, right? So as long as the dog doesn't touch the ground, you're safe. But keep in mind, anywhere you walk, you are tracking that stuff home. So again, it's all about balance and finding out how much of a concern this is in your area. I also don't go to heavy dog traffic places. I go to places like malls. Well, you know what? You don't get a lot of dog traffic at malls. I stay millions of miles away from dog parks. I also I don't walk my puppy into a pet store, which almost everybody does. And when I go to the vet, I carry my puppy because you know what? If there's going to be a sick dog, he has to go to the vet. So at the vet, I take my puppy from the car, I carry him in, I put him down on the table, they do what they need to do, I pick him up, I take him home. Now, of course, a lot of the vets, you don't get to go in with your puppy, so I'm handing the puppy off to someone. But again, I'm going to say the same thing. Remember, as soon as they walk through the door, if they'd had a sick dog, it's been seriously cleaned. So I'm not that worried about what when they're in the vet. I'm worried about when they're outside in the parking lot where dogs have gone to the bathroom possibly. So that's my thing. Stay away from heavy dog traffic areas and find out your parvo rates. Will asked, where can you find out the levels of parvo? Call your vet. Your vet will know how many cases he's had this year. And I mean, usually our local vets have like 1 or 2 cases a year, maybe 3 or 4. That's pretty low compared to the number of dogs they deal with. But only you can decide what is the best way to go with your dog. But that being said, lack of socializing could possibly create a dog that's worried and doesn't understand how to deal with the world. Your breeds are also going to affect. Even taking them out in the car and sitting in a parking lot and letting them look around is still socializing. Putting them in shopping carts. Of course, everything's in lockdown, but I always take my dog to the hardware store and stick him in the shopping cart and drive around. That way, I don't have to worry, especially with little baby puppies, I don't have to worry about them walking on leash and all that stuff. It's exposure. With Wicca, I remember the first time I took her for a walk in Kemple, it was freezing and she was shivering. So I just shoved her in my coat and we went for a walk. So be creative. It's exposure. Okay, let me see. There's lots of questions on this. Debbie says, walking in the woods and parks with my girls, kids at a distance playing. Beautiful. That's wonderful. Helen, I feel I made a big mistake. I wish you were here with me every day. I would love to be there with you every day. My little one, and Helen, I can be there with you every day if you contact me about booking some training. My little one didn't get socialized and now she's not doing well. Barks at everyone. You can fix this still. Yes, ideally we socialize before they're 4 months old, but there's still a lot you can do. The big thing is whatever's going wrong. So in your case, she barks at everyone. Is she fearful or excited? That would be one of the things I'd figure out because that mildly, it affects how I'm going to train it. But don't put her in situations where she's going to bark. Things don't go away because you keep doing the same thing over and over. There's definitely the definition of insanity, and that's what it talks about. So listen to my reactivity lives where I talk about doing collar grab and just holding her collar and letting her watch calmly. That's what you want to build. If that means you have to be 300 feet away from the people, so be it. Be 300 feet away. But she still got to see people and not bark. Don't keep pushing them into that situation where they bark and then going, oh, but they're barking. Okay, good. I'm caught up on all the questions. So if you're having issues with this, with your dog who is too excited or worried, message me for more help. Keep in mind that your puppy is showing things to come. A mildly worried puppy is probably going to be much shyer as they get older. As your dogs hit adolescence, they go through fear periods. My super social, happy-go-lucky, loves everything and everybody puppy barks at a bird farting 300 feet away right now because she's 11 months old and she's just wonky. So the hard part is if you don't do a great job when they're puppies and get them comfortable, when they hit adolescence, it becomes much harder to get them out in public, which, Helen, depending on how old your dog is, might be exactly where you're at. Okay, so back to the topic for today, releases and permissions. I'm going to start defining what I mean by this. Definitions and clarity are important because they make sure we're all on the same page. Let's start with a release is a cue. It's a cue that ends a behavior. If it tells the dog that what they are currently doing is over. Most people use okay or break for a release. Like I said, a release is a cue, and all cues are essential signals to perform an action. Because of this, we can actually have multiple release cues defining different actions that we want our dog to perform. And how picky we are on how they work comes down to training. Because of this, we can actually, now what a release means may be situational depending on the environment you and your dog are in. For example, I have a release cue called break. So let me do a little aside. Everybody, since the dawn of time, has used okay as the release. The problem is we use okay in conversation all the time. Agility people started using break, well over 10 years ago, because my 11-year-old dog has break as a release cue. Because you'd be in an agility seminar and you'd put your dog on the line and he'd be in a sit and your instructor would give you your last little bits of information. And what would you say to the instructor? Okay. And then your dog would get up and then you'd have to go back and put him in the sit again. So to avoid all that, agility people started using the word break. Now, interesting enough, I used the word okay for about 10 years, and then I used the word break for about 10 years. In informal situations, such as I'm walking in the bush, I call my dogs, I reward them, and then I say, okay, go play. I still say okay. But in formal situations where I'm actively training, doing agility, I always use break. So my dogs actually release on both okay and break, but they do not release on okay when I'm doing agility. So that's it. Everything can be modified to whatever you can do. Remember, we've always got our brain to work with. And sometimes it's easier to just go around the problem than to fix it. Okay, now that I've done that aside, let me go back because I saw some more questions. Patty, good morning. Ollie and I have been sitting in back with hatch open, watching the world go by. That's beautiful. That is lovely. Seeing dogs, ducks, people, talking to him from a distance, have been doing short times at shopping mall. And of course, he comes with me for grocery pickups. Lovely, because then he's getting comfortable with people in your car. A lot of dogs lose their mind when the guy at the gas station puts his head in to take your money or anything like that. So that's super important. He is loving people, lots you can still do. We head out into the front yard whenever I see people walking or jogging, and they always talk to him. Beautiful, Patty. Great job. Helen, she is 16 weeks old. Yes, she will hit adolescence at around 5 months-ish. So I would imagine this behavior is going to get worse if you don't get on it right away. Sky, everything scares my dog. He is almost 2 years old, and even a lead scares him. Start with what doesn't scare him, Sky. Can he be in your living room and not be scared? Is he scared of your couch? Halif. Okay, I was wondering if you were the lead, like your leash, or okay, Alif. Anyways, does anything in your living room scare him? So let's say he can be in your living room, he's totally comfortable, not scared of anything. Add one thing. Add the leaf. And I love the dollar store because for every time of year they have the coolest things like scarecrows at Halloween or Christmas decorations. So with dogs that are worried, I am constantly introducing something to the house, constantly changing the environment, right? So they're in the house, they're totally comfortable, but all of a sudden there's a scarecrow hanging at the door. And at first they're like, and then they're like, oh, I can function near the scarecrow. And then once he's comfortable, you switch it up to something else. And then, so Sky, I see you said it's only outside. I would start introducing different stuff in the house. You got to start with something he can be successful. You don't want to keep pushing him into unsuccessful. So that would be my suggestion. Okay, back to our talk. In agility, I use the break on my start line. I put my dog in front of the first obstacle, I walk away, and I say break to my dog. In this context, break means take the obstacle in front of you. Now, if my dog were sitting in the middle of the field and I said break, it means come to me. In this context, there is no obstacle for them to perform. So how would they know the difference? For my dogs, break is a general release, which means move to the next place of value. It is my job to have trained what the next place of value is for my dog. And that gives my dog the clarity to perform how I expect. Also, it's partly eye contact. Wherever my dog is focused when I release him, I expect him to go to. So if he's in a field and he's looking at the birds fly by and he's in a sit, I'm going to wait till he looks at me before I release. If he's in agility and he's looking at me, I'm going to wait till he looks at the jump to be released. So there's all these little tiny bits. Remember my talk from last week? Watch your bits. There's all these tiny bits that make the difference. Sky, we have gotten him a long lead and we spend a lot of time with him outside. Sky, that is wonderful. But are you building his confidence or are you building his fear? Putting him in that situation and not, you have to be actively working towards building confidence. Just putting them in the situation could be building fear. Does that make sense? Let me know. Okay, what is your release word? I work with so many people and I'm like, release your dogs. And they're like, oh, that means let go of the leash. I'm like, no, 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 no. It means tell your dog he can move. And they don't have a release word. They've never used okay. So how could the dog possibly understand the end of the behavior? Do you think, and if your dog does have a release word, do you think your dog understands it? Have you tested the understanding of the release word? If you have not been taking advantage of the releases with your dog, it is probable that your dog has his own set of releases that you may not be aware of. Because remember, a release is still a cue, a signal to perform an action or behavior. And if they're chasing the bunny, the sight of the bunny becomes the release cue. And you want to control that too. I can tell you when to chase the bunny. And this is where releases can come super reinforcing. When you are letting your dog go play, go run, go get a cookie, get the toy, etc., are you clear on what is cueing your dog to do these things? All these rewarding actions in their lives are preceded by cues. These cues are essentially releasing them to do these things. Like I said, the sight of the bunny means chase the bunny. You can never have behaviors under control or cue until you have clear release on a behavior. Let's say you are working on healing. You get the dog beside you and you feed for every step. The dog is doing great and understands walking beside you while being fed every step. But the minute you take away the food, the dog disengages and goes and does his own thing. This happens because most people forget to release the dog. It's so interesting how we expect full attention, but we disconnect from our dogs all the time. So when you start working on heal, let's say you go step, treat, and then you run out of treats, you reach into your pocket, you stop, you reach into your pocket, reload. What is your dog doing while you did this? Did he stay and heal? Did he wander away? Did he come in front of you? You just taught your dog, when I stop feeding you and reach into my pocket, that means you're good. You're done. Your opportunity to earn reinforcement has ended. Teaching a release will not only clearly define to your dog when you are done, it will also give you the ability to teach your dog to heal without food, because he understands when it starts and when it stops, regardless of the food. You are healing. So you're healing again, step, treat, step, treat. As I give the last reward, I say break and I step out of position. So my dog clearly understands the opportunity to earn reinforcement has ended. That doesn't mean go off and do your own thing. We'll talk about those releases in a bit. It just means the opportunity to earn reinforcement for healing is done right now. So you can go move out of position. And I have moved out of position, so he can't even think of staying in position. The same would go for a sit or a down or any behavior with a stay component. Now I start adding time between the treats. So it's step, treat, step, step, treat. Because the dog hasn't heard the break, he stays in position because the possibility of earning reinforcement is still there. Now you've gotten 2 steps, and that's how you start building the distance you can heal without rewards till eventually it just works. Okay, so I'm going to go back and answer some questions. Sky, when something scares him, I go to it and I look at it, show him that it's okay. Okay, so he doesn't care if you think it's okay. I I always think of it this way. Something's approaching you and your dog, it's so you're standing with somebody you know, and there's a truck driving at you at full speed. And the person's saying, "It's okay, it'll stop. It's okay, it'll stop." How close does the truck get before you're like, "Screw it, I'm leaving"? How much faith do you have in that person to save your life? Or are you 100% sure you're going to stand there with the truck driving at you at full speed? Expecting our dogs to put their safety in our hands, to me, makes no sense. I can't put my safety in somebody else's hands. Once I get to a point, I'm like, no, we're done. I don't believe you. So you saying it's okay is wonderful. And I definitely walk up to an item and I talk with it. I don't tell my dog it's okay, but I'm like, oh, hello, fire hydrant. How are you? How's it going? And possibly my dog will go, what if I step a little closer? And I will reward that that walking towards something, because what I'm rewarding is building confidence, overcoming fear. It's not being scared. We all get scared. The dogs get scared. It's understanding that if you're scared, you need to still move towards it. So if I'm talking to the fire hydrant and he moves towards me, I'm going to drop a cookie so that I'm reinforcing that forward motion. And if he gets near the fire hydrant, I'm going to throw cookies at the fire hydrant. So now he's like, oh, if you approach fire hydrants, they're covered in cookies. And then the next fire hydrant, he might be cautious, but he might go, the last time fire hydrant was covered in cookies. And then eventually he'll be like, oh, it's a fire hydrant. I love fire hydrants, and approach it. But never, I think we can't believe that just because we think it's okay, the dog's going to go, yeah, it's safe. You told me so, so I'm good. Okay, Debbie. On a walk, I make her wait. She has to sit. Then I start to walk while she remains sitting. Then I say, let's walk. She stays in a sit till I say that, so far about 6 feet. Awesome. Beautiful. I'm going to challenge you to be super careful that you are releasing on, it's not super careful. This is your test. And we're going to talk about it later in the thing. But when you're doing that, I want you to do stuff like stop and go down on one knee and then stand up. Does she move? That would be your next thing to work on. Do you give a physical signal like a tap to your side to release, or does she release purely on a verbal? So this is how you start getting into the bits, starting to see exactly what is releasing your dog. I'm going to talk about it in a minute. Releasing on purely verbals is super hard for humans because we got to move. Okay, back to my release cue called break. If I have a dog in a stay somewhere and I say break, my dog should find the next place of value. If I've done my job correctly, that never means go off and do your own thing. I have different commands like go see, go play, go run when I'm releasing my dog to go do whatever. For example, I don't want my dog's leash coming off to mean go for a run. Picture in the agility ring. You walk to the start line, you take the leash off. The last thing you want is your dog to go running around the ring, effectively disqualifying you before you even start. So I want to be very clear on what I expect. When they are young puppies, I start with things like I take the leash off and I reward them. And then I put the leash back on and I reward them. And then I take the leash off and I reward them. Teaching them that, and then when I release them, I say go run. Teaching them that when I take the leash off, look to me for further information instead of zooming around and going away. This has the great side effect of your dog beginning to look to you for permissions. Right? Puppies don't have value for those things. Puppies don't have value for chasing squirrels. Puppies don't have value for playing with other dogs. Puppies don't have value for running in the bush. When you start training a puppy, that is a great opportunity to start putting permissions in right from the beginning and make it part of, I go run in the bush after my mama says go run in the bush. And now you've got that power. The history you are building tells them that unleashed, pay attention to the owner, because unleashed is not the release. Go run is the release cue in this situation. Again, building your relationship and that want to work with you concept. So then I might go, okay, there's dogs playing over there. I'm going to see, can you sit? Can you down? Can you spin? Can you heel? So that's how I start building eventually a dog that could do agility with a dog playing tug right outside the ring. That, and in that case, I might say, sit, okay, go play. And then I'm gonna call him back 10 minutes later and go, down, okay, go play. So that he's always going, I can use my brain even though there's a distraction, and I get rewarded by going to play. So, have you tested your dog's understanding of his release? Let me explain more what I mean by that. Let's take a downstay. My criteria, meaning the rules around the downstay, is I want them to release on a verbal. I rarely want my dog to release on body motion. I usually want them to release on a verbal because it means I can release them when they can't see me. Remember, dogs work off body language. English is not their first language. Pair this with the fact that human beings are incapable of saying the word break or okay without moving. It's funny, test it. I work with clients all the time and everybody has the same problem, me included. So here's your test. For best results, video, have someone watch you or do this in the mirror. Cue your dog to sit in front of you. Now, without moving, say your release word confidently. If you give cues like questions, sort of like, okay, your dog's probably going to go, you don't know what you're talking about. Be confident, not harsh, confident. Okay, but that doesn't mean you have to always go, sit. It just means you have to be confident and clear. So if your dog understands his release, he should move. If he doesn't move, that's giving you information that your verbal release is not clear to your dog. Your release in this context is probably you moving. No wonder you are having difficulty adding motion to your sit stay, because as soon as you move, your dog comes with you. Don't worry about this. This is very normal. I've taught agility, like I said, and obedience classes for over 20 years, and there are a lot of things that are just human nature. Meaning a large portion of my students do the exact same thing when we start. And one of them is moving when we say, okay, it's the funniest thing. Okay, here's your training plan to fix this. Let me remind you, for this to work, you have to stand perfectly still when you say the release. So when I'm testing my release, I stand like up straight, my hands to my side. I have tactile, so my hands on my legs, because that reminds them not to move. And then I just say the release. So again, use video, use a mirror, or someone to watch you. Not moving when you say the release is super hard. So we're going to go step 1, cue your dog to sit in front of you. Step 2, have a cookie in your hand. Step 3, say your release word without moving. So say, okay. Step 4, take a step back, drop the cookie on the ground and say, get it. A lot of dogs in sits, we reward really close to our body. So the sit becomes relative to your body. The sit is always in front of you. The sit is not relative to their body, meaning if I say sit, your butt should hit the ground regardless where you're looking, regardless where you are in relation to me. The reason I'm doing the get it instead of rewarding off of you is that starts to give them independence on their sit. Repeat this 5 times. Test the cue. Cue your dog to sit in front of you. Now, without moving, say your release. Does your dog move? Does he at least flinch? Sometimes they flinch and they're like, was I supposed to move? So no problem. If they don't do it, go back and repeat 5 times and then go back and do it and test again. And this is all dog training, constantly testing, training, testing, training, testing, training, to your dog's going, got it. And then you move on to something more challenging. For me right now with Wicca, I'm working on being able to understand sit and down without a hand signal. She can down and she can sit, but once you start putting them both together and asking for sits, downs, she will offer the last one she did. She goes out of thinking and goes into pattern. So that is our challenge right now. So I'm adding the hand signals back, which she's got down pat. And then I do 4 or 5 reps with hand signals, making it easier, making them successful, building value. And then I do one without a hand signal. She gets it wrong. We go back and make it easier. Sooner or later, she's like, oh, I got it. And then we work from there. Okay. Any questions? I know we covered a lot of information. Can you think of places where you could add releases? And you can use the power of the release to create a better trained dog, a dog who wants to work. Remember this, yes, it's all about control, but it's not that constant control. Sometimes I go to see people and they're like, oh, you're in trouble. The trainer's here. Are you kidding me? Dogs love me. They love to train. They love to work as long as it's done fairly and keeping up your rate of reinforcement, which we're going to talk about in the next couple of weeks. Okay, I want to end this by introducing our new program called the Canine Reset. Times are changing, and luckily, even if we are continually distanced because of COVID, we have the power of the internet. If you want to get the most out of life with your dog, are looking to grow as a dog owner or dog sport handler, or maybe even start learning at a higher level on the way to mastery in your dog training, then the Canine Reset monthly coaching program may be for you. This monthly program starts with your very own customized training plan designed to keep you moving forward towards achieving your ultimate goals, as well as all the training tutorials required to successfully execute that plan. And of course, one-on-one training consults, either remote or in person. If time is short or we aren't able to get on the same schedule, we can even forego the consult and do back and forth video messaging and video review. I love video. You see so much when you video your training. And of course, we all know community is integral to success. That's why I've included a group component to this program. In the group, I will host bi-weekly live Q&A, much like these lives, but much more interactive, more like Zoom calls instead of Facebook Lives. Anything and everything will be covered, from effective energy-burning exercise sessions to stress-free nail clipping. If true, I'm so proud. I have to post it. I have the videos. I've been able to always clip my dog's nails, but now I have a dog who lies there quietly and lets me Dremel. I finally got around to working on that, and I have to share it with you because I have a dog who enjoys nail clipping. How awesome is that? It truly does take a village sometimes, so it is my wish that this extra level of peer support helps you, along with access to our training partners, will keep you engaged, focused, and committed to staying on track and reaching your training goals. The bi-weekly live Q&A calls tackles the in-between topics that support your training plan and goal execution. These calls are a great place to receive personal tips and enrichment in your dog training that may not be part of your main training focus, but ultimately have an overall impact on behavioral success. Inside the group, you will also find an ever-growing library of dog training content, meant to be consumed at your leisure if you want to go beyond just problem solving and truly start learning the art of raising and training a focused, engaged, and confident dog. Obviously, as you can tell, I'm super excited for this program, loving our tight-knit community that's already starting to grow there. So I hope to see you on the inside. And that's all I have for today. Let me know if you want to enroll in our Canine Reset monthly coaching program or have any questions regarding releases and permissions. Just send me an email at info@dogtraining.ca or message me here on Facebook. Thanks for tuning in. Have a wonderful weekend and happy training. Let me just check any last messages. Debbie, I've got a lot of info to work on this week. Oh, I love releases. The Get It game that I've posted a couple of times on my Facebook Lives is my beginning of releases to eventually have a dog that I throw a toy and they're like, waiting, are you going to let me go? I love it. Okay, guys, have a wonderful weekend and we will see you next week at our next live. Thank you.